pirates, yes, they robbed and sold out to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Hey, what's up, troops? Ops Sgt-Maj with Veterans for Freedom, Jeff Evely, back with you now on this 18th day of August, 2023. And it's Friday, everybody, so I got my Red Friday shirt on. It's a little bit weathered, but I did order a new one, so hopefully that one comes in here soon. Before we get into her, I'll go ahead and say my good mornings to everybody. Let's see who's with us. Hey, Daryl, our most based of all V4F members, is with us, saying, hey, everyone, what's up, man? Good to have you with us. Thanks for always being here. Colleen is here as always saying happy Friday, freedom lovers. Happy Friday to you, Colleen. And Daryl is over on YouTube as well. Hey, what's up, Daryl? You're all over the place. Awesome, man. Evelyn is saying good morning. Good morning to you, Evelyn. And I got Rishik Singh. Daryl is there. Okay, never mind. Shannon is saying good morning. Facebook is making it harder to find Jeff's stream. That's not surprising. Disappointing, but not surprising. But I'm always plugging the Rumble channel there, folks. So please join us over on Rumble, the non-censorship platform, even more so than Twitter. So, it is what it is. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing here all the time, even if I'm just kind of screaming into that social media void a lot of the time. But, we got to keep up the fight. And I have a pretty good quote lined up in that regard as well. James is here saying, good morning, Patriots. Good morning to you, James. Dale says, good morning. And I have BP saying, good morning from Terrace. I'm not sure where Terrace is, but thanks for being with us. Okay, Jan is saying, I figured I would be late, even though I am not. I did my 20 wall push-ups. I will be listening as I drive to the lawyer's office. Well, good luck with that. A lot of us have the lawyer up here. I was in court just the other day, actually, and I just got an adjournment till February now. So who knows if this thing's ever going to get resolved. It's for a mask violation that I got before the trucker convoy. And also I filed another application for judicial review yesterday, this time for the hiking ban during the Nova Scotia fires, when I wasn't allowed to walk in the park by my house with my dog because there was a fire like 700 kilometers away from me. So a lot of the same heavy-handedness, overbroad, minimal consideration for the minimal impairment of people's freedoms in Canada as is required by the Charter. Chris says, hard to watch this. I think he means the opening song there. I'm sorry you feel that way, bro. I'm sorry you feel that way. But I think it's a powerful message, So that's kind of what I'm going for there. Cindy is here as always, our most faithful of all watchers, and she says, "Good morning, Jeff. Hearts, everyone. Hearts right back at you." I got a POS spammer here somewhere. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Daryl, for the heads up. Terry is saying, "Good morning from New Brunswick." He's one of my most favorite boomers as well. Thanks for always being with us. Scotian lady over on YouTube's "Good morning, Jeff," giving us a flex. Please roast this wannabe tyrant as ruthless as he truly deserves, as the CPC provided zero opposition to any of Trudeau's tyrannical nonsense for 3+ years. Expose every weakness. Yes, I'm a big fan of exposing the weakness of the practiced and polished professional politician, the paper tiger, Pierre Poilievre. So I'll be all over that. And I try my best not to be too partisan on the V4F live stream here. I'm pretty open about the fact that I'm a card-carrying member of the People's Party of Canada, and I was just teeing up a couple of things, following up, trying to finalize my application for candidacy with them. So hopefully that comes through here very soon. I want to get out door knocking in the Cape Breton area where people are still very, 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 very asleep. But I'm finding people on social media. That seems to be happening quite a bit. So it's encouraging. Mother of the Drummers says, "Morning, Jeff. I'm on time today. No push-ups for this old gal." That's great. Thanks a lot for always being with us, mother of all drummers. James Q, my homie from Cape Breton, is saying, "Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jeff. Share. Yes, thank you very much, James, for always having the top cover for me on that one. Please share this out, guys. I am the worst guy for not promoting my own stuff. I did okay the last little while. I've been getting better at it. But I tell you what, I did the sharing and stuff today with the morning routine, and it got my routine all screwed up. So tabs might be a little bit out of order today in my presentation, maybe a little bit more than a little. But bear with me, guys. Still lots of good info coming at you. Jane is saying, "Happy Friday, everyone." And thanks, Jane, for always being with us. I appreciate your support. Dale is here with us as well. Darlene is here saying, "Good morning, all. Tuning in from New Brunswick." Thanks, Darlene, for always being with us. And Stephanie says, "On my way to Helen Grus's hearing, updates to come. Cheers, mates." Yes, thanks, Stephanie. I showed some of your updates from your Facebook on the live there the other day. I got a couple updates coming at us here this morning as well. Debbie is saying, "Good morning from Taber, Alberta." Thanks for always being with us, Debbie. A special appreciation for the Westerners for being with us so early. Sarah is saying, "Morning, Dags." This is V4F, but we're good friends of the Dags around here. So good morning to all the Dags joining us. It's definitely a relationship I think worth fostering between the two organizations. Alpha of the Betas is saying, Morning, Jeff, from the heart of Circulon. I believe that's Ottawa. So thanks for being with us, brother, from the echo chamber there in Ottawa that has us so miserably tyrannized. And I have a bunch of stuff I got to get in order here, folks, but I'm going to do my best to kind of juggle this in. I was just kind of all over the place. There's always so much going on, and it's Friday, so I wanted to make it a pretty good show. I did a couple of guests earlier this week, so I find when I do the guest interviews, like they're great interviews, and there's always kinds of really valuable discussion. And then I find myself going, oh my God, now there's all this other stuff that I wanted to talk about that happened today that I didn't really get to. So I'm trying to pack a lot in here, and bear with me. Like I say, we'll power through it. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this sucker. Here we go. Here's Jordan Peterson for our philosophy meme for the day. Philosophy quote, whatever. And he says, if you aren't dead, keep going. There's still time. Yep, I think that's good advice. That's something we should all take to heart around here. I know, part of the PSYOP, part of the strategy here in what I believe is already World War III, and historians are going to look back at the present moment and say that we were already in it. Just too many of us didn't wake up to it yet. Big part of the PSYOP is the demoralization, okay? And it's to get us to give up. And I can see, there are some morale issues out there in the movement. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people are kind of finding each other, and we're solidifying in a lot of areas. But it's going to be a kind of a disorganized, I think, solidifying and aggregation of sort of all the right people finding each other out there in the movement. So if you're feeling a little bit demoralized, just remember that means you're letting them win. And what happens to a man is not as important as what happens within him. Pardon the phallocentric language there, ladies. But I believe that's how the expression was originally stated, was what happens within him, what happens to a man is not as important as what happens within him. So stay frosty and stay safe. That's what I'm always saying, is everybody's got to stay frosty, keep a level head and all this. And if you're feeling demoralized, then, you're letting the other side win. So that's a good quote from Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. He says, if you aren't dead, keep going. There's still time. And that is very true. Okay, here's our meme for the day. And I still have something set up here. What is this? All right, so meme is, this is a picture of a couple of lovely ladies in bikinis. I like bikinis, not burqas. And they're pretty clearly, I think, somewhere in the southern U.S. This looks like the Emerald Coast, could be Florida. And they're in a boat, and they're holding up a flag. They've got, first of all, they've got a flag here that's flying. It's an American flag, and black and white with a little skull on it. So it's pretty clearly the southern U.S. And this lady here is holding a flag, or the two of them are kind of holding it together. And it says LGBT, and the L is for liberty, the G is for guns, the B is for beer, and the T is for titties. I'm like, wow, I think I can get on board with that agenda. Yes, sir. Okay, here is top of the top story here. I'll go ahead and play Pierre Poilievre. He did a pretty good job handling the CBC here, and this is going viral, I think. So he's doing pretty good in terms of getting the viral clips. Here we go.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre. A number of your own comments and actions have been characterized as dog whistling to the far right.
By who?
By a number of different.
Who?
But I think it's been characterized by that way. But are you trying to court? Are you trying to court the far right?
Sorry, I just need to clarify. By who?
By a number of different experts and a number of different people who work in this. Okay, well, I think it's been established that this is a concern. Are you trying to court the far right vote?
Who are these experts? You say that there are experts who are saying this. Who are they?
My question is, are you trying to court the far right vote?
I'm sorry. Your question seems to be based on a false premise. You can't even tell me who these experts are. It sounds like it's just a CBC smear job. Thank you.
But what about the question about whether that's
the answer is that I have a common sense agenda to axe the carbon tax, bring home powerful paychecks, clear the way to build affordable homes, to put people in housing that they can afford. That is a common sense, mainstream Canadian agenda. And I know that Justin Trudeau's supporters are so desperate to distract from that because his political career is falling apart. So we're seeing an attempt here to distract and protect Justin Trudeau from his extremely unpopular carbon taxes and other failing policies, but we won't let him or his or others distract from that reality. So thank you.
So you're not going to answer that question?
Armor of God is saying, this is True North, by the way. I should definitely plug that. True North provided that clip. And Armor of God over on YouTube is saying, freedom is far right now. Yeah, it seems like freedom is far right and has been for the last few years. Here in the True North, strong and free. Yeah, that's about the size of it. And a couple other comments here. Scotian Lady is saying, tits against tyranny was an idea I had about a spicy protest idea a long time ago. LOL. To get attention, maybe. Yeah, I think that would probably garner some positive attention, I hope. I believe ladies are allowed to go topless in Ontario, so maybe that would be a good location for that. Okay, I'll behave, guys. I'll behave. And Daryl is saying, I didn't get a chance to talk to Daryl about this yesterday, but we were trying to tee up a conversation. I'm just flat out, guys. I got a bunch of people that are waiting for me to get back to them at any given moment in time. But Daryl is announcing here on the program right now that I invited Randy Hillier to attend Ryan's Ruckus Brotherhood Builder Bush Bash, 11 to 17 September near Dauphin, Manitoba. That's the bash that we're all going to here, folks. I got my ticket already. And if you haven't booked your flights, you might want to get on that before the prices go up. I'll be flying into Manitoba myself. And I'm going to be meeting up with Cindy and James, and we're going to carpool from Manitoba up to Dauphin there. So it's going to be great. Okay. And he says, Daryl says, however, he is unable to make it, but graciously accepted my offer to come on Jeff's show next week. Stay tuned for details. I'm sure it will be interesting. I am sure it will be. That is amazing. And thank you, Daryl. This isn't anywhere near, I don't think, the first time that he's lined up a terrific guest for me. So that's spectacular, brother. And thanks so much for all the effort that you're putting in more broadly. With the bash and with the guests and everything like that. It is truly appreciated. Okay. This is Stephen Taylor, and he says, if you were Prime Minister of Canada, would you sell the CBC to Elon Musk for $1? And the first comment here is, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that he would chuckle, say no thanks, and walk away still chuckling. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good response here. So the CBC is out here calling us all far right for, trying to stand on the principles on which this country was founded and, bring back the Constitution and human rights law in Canada. That's a far right position right now. And, the CBC, yeah, I mean, I think it's overpriced for $1, but I would rather see it in the hands of Elon Musk than the Canadian government. That is for sure. So very clever. Here is the Western Standard. They've got an article here that says, do you believe the media is biased against Poilievre? This is a poll, sorry, not an article. And I went ahead and did my vote. So, of course, I voted yes, it is biased against Poilievre. But it's not just Poilievre. Like, it's us. It's regular Canadians. They hate us. Here the poll is coming in. 95.9% say yes, and only 3.8% say no. Now, this is Western Standard, so it tends to attract a more right-wing audience. Take it for what it's worth. You want to look at it through that lens. 95.9. I think people are really waking up, though, to the fact that we're heavily propagandized, and we got to get the so-called news out of the hands of the state, because it's not news when it's funded by the state, it's propaganda. So, and here is, speaking of propaganda, here is Mark Slapinski. He's Toronto 99. Maybe that's a little bit of a harsh criticism. He's pretty open about the fact that he's trying to get Pierre Poilievre elected. So it is what it is. I show his stuff here on the program. I think he does some good work. But just understand that he is a conservative shill. So, I mean that as in big C conservative, the Conservative Party of Canada. He's a shill for them. So here he is saying, Pierre Poilievre comes rolling into town looking like Calvin Klein, looking like a Calvin Klein model. Oh, get a room, you two. Looking like a Calvin Klein model, sporting a hot wife, and a plan to save Canada from Justin Trudeau's failed economic policies. Who stands with Poilievre? Now, I'm using my backup account still on Twitter because I got that suspension for sharing images of butchered children without labeling them sensitive content. I think that's a lesson I'm going to have to take in all of this, but I haven't received any kind of response to my appeal. I think I'm going to let it go until early September, because that would make it 90 days since I submitted my appeal. But anyway, I'm here on my my backup account, which is super hot mega hunk. And so the question is, who stands with Poilievre? And I said, I wish I could, but he supports the for-profit sexual butchering of Canadian children so much that he would jail any father who tries to protect his daughter from becoming pharmacological livestock. Bill C4. Yep. So that's where I am on that. Screw this guy. That's what I say. But it would still be a huge step in the right direction, a huge improvement over Trudeau. No doubt about that. But I often say they all serve the same political hegemony at this moment in our history. That is the boomer hegemony. They're the party establishment. And, you know, Pierre Poilievre had a tap dance for years just to get their permission to run. Everybody was always asking, when is Pierre going to run? Why isn't he running? And, you know, the boomer establishment, though, they prefer nice boys because they prefer nice boys like Trudeau. Look no further than the music industry back in the 90s there. I mean, Gen X was coming up, you know, just forming these new genres of music that were all centered around what vicious child abusers the boomers really are. So that would have been like Seattle Sound and grunge music, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, that kind of thing. And these were the genres of music. Gangster rap, that's another one, like rap music. These were all recording companies that had to be established by the artists themselves. Like the Gen X had to establish their own recording companies because the establishment, the boomer investment class, wouldn't finance that kind of stuff. And what did they finance? Boy bands. That's what. Andrew Scheer as Justin Trudeau light, and when that didn't work, they went with Blandrew Scheer without the dimples, and that was Aaron O'Toole. And of course, you know, he doesn't stand up to the media at all. None of them do. They all tap dance to the they all dance to that same Pied Piper tune that the media keeps putting out there. But at least Pierre Poilievre is not doing that. They held him back for quite a while. At the same time, I keep saying, like, he is sort of controlled opposition. And Mark Slapinski is pretty clearly a propagandist for the Conservative Party of Canada, Calvin Klein model, for sakes. Get a room. Okay, and here is the National Compost, and they're saying Canada has a game plan if U.S. takes far-right authoritarian shift, Joly says. Canada is watching next year's presidential elections closely, says Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. Why? What the hell is she going to learn from it? Like, this person is oblivious. Okay. Ottawa, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says Canada has been considering a quote-unquote game plan for how it would respond if the U.S. takes a far-right authoritarian shift after next year's presidential elections. So this is absurd because Donald Trump is facing multiple indictments at this point. It's not the far right that's doing that. It's the far left, and it has everything to do with keeping him off his game and perhaps preventing him from running in 2024. But as he keeps saying, every time I get an indictment, my poll numbers go up. Just one more indictment and we got this next election locked in. Okay, back to the article. Quote, we are certainly working on scenarios, close quote, Joly said in French during an interview with a Montreal radio station Wednesday. Joly added that Ottawa's close political and economic ties to the U.S. means that, quote, we must certainly prepare several scenarios, close quote. She suggested a game plan in mind, but she suggested Canada has a game plan in mind, but won't get into details. Quote, in general, there is a game plan precisely to be able to manage what it could be a rather difficult situation, close quote, she said. Quote, I will work with my colleagues and with the mayors, the provincial premiers, the business community, and with unions, with everyone in the country, so that we are ready regardless of the election outcome, close quote. Ready for what? What the hell are you talking about? Like, are we talking about repelling a U.S. invasion? Is Canada going to do that? Yeah, I don't think so. So this is just a bunch of fear mongering, right? Joly drew an analogy to her government's experience working with the administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump, who sought to limit long-established trade in crucial sectors. Trump is again running for a Republican nomination in next November's election and has promised, quote-unquote, retribution against his opponents and civil servants. he really is drawing out all the crazies, right? That's the thing that Donald Trump, I think that's the service that he provides is he's the scales are falling from a lot of people's eyes with the way that he draws out the crazies. The U.S. Embassy in Ottawa declined to comment on Jolie's remarks. In University of Ottawa, national security professor Thomas Junot said many Canadians might find it far-fetched to talk about Washington falling drastically out of step with Canada. But there has been an extreme rise in global volatility in recent years, he said in a Thursday interview. But he there has said, okay. Quote, what would have been extremely far-fetched scenarios maybe 10 years ago today are not impossible anymore, close quote, he said. Junot said Canada could face the prospect of political refugees, economic protectionism in one of the largest trading relationships in the world, and shock to Ottawa's reliance on the U.S. for intelligence sharing and scientific cooperation. The U.S. has saved our asses multiple times with their intelligence sharing. The Toronto 18, the Millennium Bomber. There was that terrorist cell in Kingston. All kinds of stuff. Like they've been saving our asses. So that's absurd. Those factors don't include missile defense and military protection. Quote, if an increasingly authoritarian U.S. and increasingly unilateral and dismissive of traditional alliances like NATO or arrangements like NORAD, how does that damage our security? Close quote, as Junot asked. NATO is a military pact as well. Or sorry, NORAD. It's the only binational command structure in the history of the world. Okay. He said another question would be around American intervention in Canadian democratic processes. Already far-right politicians in the U.S. voiced support for the quote-unquote Freedom Convoy protest in 2022. That's not interference. At the time, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is now running against Trump for the Republican presidential nomination, both fought against attempts to prevent Americans from donating to convoy protesters. What's wrong with that? In September 2021, the Liberals promised to create a, quote, Canadian Center for Global Democracy, close quote, to shore up like-minded countries in an age of rising authoritarianism, but the project has not yet launched. NDP Foreign Affairs critic Heather McPherson said it's only logical that Ottawa plan for an aggressive Washington. She said Canada would benefit from stronger ties with other allies, even if it ends up remaining on good terms with the U.S. Now, this was the kind of thing that they were pushing right after the 2015 election with Chrystia Freeland calling us a client state of the U.S. And it's just, how they're always accusing us. Tyrants are always accusing us of what they themselves are guilty. And now we are effectively a client state of China because that's what they said. They wanted to build these ties with China instead of with the U.S. And of course, we have a massive trade deficit with China. They're sulking us and dominating us in the political sphere and the information battle space. So that's all the result of this kind of nonsense. Quote, Donald Trump is a scourge on democracy across the world, close quote, she said. Frankly, Canada is better to have a plan for a decline in American democracy, close quote. Oh, my God, Heather McPherson. Meanwhile, Junot said he hasn't heard of other countries saying publicly that they have contingency plans if Uncle Sam takes an authoritarian turn. Quote, this is very sensitive for any democratic ally of the U.S., close quote, he said. Quote, my guess is that any ally would be very, very discreet about this, close quote. And the fact that we're not should tell you something. The fact that our politicians are out there being very indiscreet about this is very telling, I think. It tells you just how much influence China in particular has in our politics. Generally, Canada's allies have used language focused on the risks of America withdrawing from the world stage. France's ambassador to Canada said last April that closer ties between Ottawa and Europe could protect both from Washington pulling inward. Quote, this nagging question of the future American commitment offers, in any case, more than ever, the opportunity for Europe, France, and Canada to play a role together, close quote. Michel Mariette said in French at the Montreal Council on Foreign Relations. He cited the Iraq War, Barack Obama's Democratic administration opting against intervening in Syria, the limited pushback to Russia's 2014 takeover of Ukraine's Crimea region, and the chaotic U.S. exit from Afghanistan. Quote, the withdrawal from the world stage initiated under Obama and amplified under Trump has proved disastrous. It created a vacuum quickly filled by the rival powers and opened a field of expansion for Russia, close quote, Myriad said at the time. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I wouldn't compare those two things. The Obama administration versus the Trump administration. The world was never so safe in my adult life as it was under the helmsmanship of the great Donald. And when it comes to Obama in Iraq and Obama in Syria, like ISIS was basically Obama's fault. He pulled out of there, let that vacuum be filled by these violent theocrats with ISIS. I mean, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi actually gave a sermon from the largest mosque in Mosul city at one point. Not even Osama bin Laden even so much as aspired to do as much as that. That was pretty incredible. A pretty incredible expansion of authoritarian power thanks to Obama's follies. And of course, there was the fall of Libya as well, that precipitated the 2015 migrant crisis. And we see all kinds of problems as a result of that. Of course, the West was the only civilization that took in refugees and took in unprecedented numbers. And now our children are being beat up. Our women are being raped all over Europe. And the CBC wouldn't even report on the 2016 New Year's Eve 1,000 sexual assaults in Cologne, Germany, until 7 days after it happened. I remember that. They did the best they could to suppress the story, but international news was picking it up, and eventually they kind of slipped it out there. Okay, here's Canada Proud, and they say, sign up here if you want to see the CBC defunded. And they're sharing a graphic that says, what should Pierre Poilievre do with CBC's headquarters once it is defunded? Sell it to help pay off Trudeau's deficit, turn it into new homes for Canadians, build a new museum on the history of propaganda, something else. Let us know in the comments. I think the museum on the history of propaganda is my favorite option there. I think I would rather see that than even more so than selling it to Elon Musk for $1. Okay, so here's Ottawa Citizen, and this is creepy and alarming. This is from the 14th, so a few days ago. Federal government consulting on generative AI code of conduct. Accidental post reveals. Now that the existence of the consultation has been revealed, the government really does have a duty of care to tell the public what this is all about. Ottawa, the Liberal government has quietly begun work on a voluntary code of conduct for generative artificial intelligence technology like ChatGPT. A spokesperson for the Innovation Minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, confirmed a consultation is underway after the government posted it on its, quote, consulting with Canadians, close quote, website, but made no other announcement it was underway. Audrey Champeau said in an email statement that Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, quote, is conducting a brief consultation on generative AI with AI experts, including from academia, industry, and civil society on voluntary code of practice intended for Canadian AI companies, close quote. A government source said online posting was put up too early in the process, said the government, since the government is just sending out invitations for roundtable discussions. University of Ottawa professor Michael Geist spotted the accidentally posted consultation and posted about it on social media Friday. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel, who leads a multi-party caucus of MPs focusing on technologies like AI, said the consultation, quote, caught a lot of people, including parliamentarians, by surprise, close quote. Rempel founded the Parliamentary Caucus on Emerging Technology, a group of senators, MPs with representatives from all political parties who are spending the summer learning about AI technology. The idea is that when Parliament comes back in September, there will be a group of Canadian parliamentarians better equipped to navigate AI regulation, something AI experts internationally have been pleading for with the launch of ChatGPT last November. Quote, maybe if it was an actual mistake, the department will reach out to us. It's certainly no secret that we exist, close quote, Rempel said. Quote, I do really think that it's important for the government to be engaging with parliamentarians on a nonpartisan sort of basis on this issue so it doesn't become polarized, close quote. Rempel said now that the existence of the consultation has been revealed. Quote, the government really does have a duty of care to tell the public what this is all about, close quote. Yeah, I would agree with that, Michelle Rempel. and certainly I had my criticisms of her, but she's right about that. When Parliament comes back from the summer break, the House of Commons Industry Committee will begin studying Bill C-27, which has a section called the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, ADA, which would introduce obligations for quote unquote high impact AI systems. Lovely. So everybody's kind of wondering, oh God, what are we coming into here in the fall? Well, release the AI. That's what's coming, I think. No, I'm not sure, but anyway, this is very concerning. So, but the bill, which was introduced in June 2022, which was written before ChatGPT and other competitors were launched, meaning it actually predates the emergence of generative AI systems. Rempel said the government could be, quote, just trying to do this sort of sneakily behind closed doors to check a box before the big bill is considered at industry committee, close quote, to be able to say, quote, we talked to people about this issue, don't worry about it, close quote, or it could be a meaningful consultation. Quote, I don't know, but the government should be expressing their intent alongside the consultation, and they should be making it more public, close quote. Yeah, what the hell is going on inside our government right now? Yeah, there is all of this stuff that we'll want to be keeping an eye on as we move forward. And doing Cesari saying, I'm a little late. Already did the push-ups. Continue. All right. Godspeed, sir. That's excellent work. Push-ups are good for you. And I can't evaluate your form over here, but just make sure you got 90 degrees in those elbows, guys. Okay. And here is the officers' mess on Twitter. These guys, they have the Canadian Armed Forces, the Triforce crest, and it's upside down, which would indicate that the institution is in distress. So they seem to be on the right side of history, and they're saying first they cut the unvaccinated, and to reward you for your fealty, blind loyalty, then they cut you, Strategic Review and Deficit Reduction Act Plan 2.0, Electric Boogaloo. And here is the Globe and Mail article that they're tweeting out here, and it says cabinet ministers given October 2nd deadline to cut $15 billion from spending plans. You guys could just do Zoom calls instead of traveling all over the world, and that would probably, and maybe not charge the taxpayer for all that booze that you drank on your flights and things like that. I think that would be a very simple way to cut $15 billion. But more to the point, how much have we spent in Ukraine, and what the hell is that all about? Like, maybe if we just and Maxime Bernier talks about cutting all foreign aid. Like, we need to think about Canada, guys. We need to aid Canadians, and we're going to see a little bit about that in a minute here. So here is the article, and this is the Globe and Fail. They say, cabinet ministers given October 2nd deadline to cut $15 billion from budget plans. Federal cabinet ministers have been given an October 2nd deadline to come up with specific cuts as part of an effort to shave about $15 billion from the existing spending plans, according to a letter obtained by the Globe and Mail. New Treasury Board President Anita Anand delivered the deadline in writing to her cabinet colleagues, meaning many ministers in new roles only have a few weeks to find cuts that were first promised in the 2023 budget. And they're in break right now. It's the summer break. So this is interesting that this is coming out at this time. The March 28th budget announced a goal of saving $7.1 billion over 5 years through a 15% cut to discretionary spending on consulting, professional services, and travel over 5 years. It also announced a plan to phase in of a 3% spending cut by departments and agencies by 2026-27, with a goal of saving $7 billion over 4 years. As well, both plans are expected to produce continuing saving in the future years. Crown corporations are expected to find a combined $1.3 billion in saving over 4 years. Quote, I am seeking your support to develop proposals to achieve these targets, close quote. Ms. Anand writes in the letter, quote, in particular, organizations should review their programming to identify where there might be duplication programs with lower value for money or programs that do not address top priorities of the government, close quote. The Treasury Board minister said any savings should be sustainable and not create any pressure on service delivery. The letter was sent to ministers just days before a cabinet retreat that is scheduled to take place in Charlottetown next week. Is that going on in Charlottetown? Okay, that's probably enough for the Globe and Fail article there. But yeah, so the farce continues here, folks, with the with all of this nonsense. So here is something on our military. Of course, that's very near and dear to our hearts right here. So this is Lauren Gunter. He's with the Sun, and I think he also writes for Western Standard, but I could be mistaken about that. But here's the Sun News Network, Lauren Gunter, and here we go.
You may remember this past winter that we learned we'd sent about 100 Canadian troops to Poland. They were there to help train Ukrainians to fight the Russians. But we'd sent them without a cook. And the Department of National Defense had said, well, just eat out at local restaurants and submit the bills, and we'll pay you back right away. But months had gone by, and none of these troops had been reimbursed. And so they were asking their family and friends at home to send them money because they'd maxed out their credit cards. Well, that was bad enough. But now we find out something worse. We have troops in Latvia in a NATO exercise designed to discourage the Russians from invading that little country that lies on the Russian border. And what's happened there? Well, we sent some of our troops without the proper helmets. We've put them in harm's way in live fire exercises without the standard helmets, for crying out loud. I mean, can you believe that? We would actually ask people to put their lives on the line for the country and for Western democracies without sending with proper helmets. So they've had to buy their own helmets. And some of them don't have proper bulletproof vests. And some of them don't have rain gear. So they're stuck there in Latvia without helmets, without rain ponchos, without bulletproof vests that fit properly. And they've had to buy their own or have people who they know in Canada send them the equipment that they need. And to make matters worse, about half of our units don't have anti-tank weapons. They don't have anti-drone systems. So if the Russians were to send drones over, we wouldn't know they were there until after they'd attacked. It's disgusting. It borders on criminal in my mind. But at the very least, it's disgusting that the Liberals would ask people to serve their country in the most dangerous way without giving them the adequate equipment. And here's the kicker. In Latvia, we are training right next to Danes. The Danes are fully kitted out. They have all the right equipment. They have all the right helmets and vests. They have rain ponchos. And much of the equipment is Canadian made. And the Danes got it from Canadian suppliers, which means the equipment is there. The reason our troops don't have it is that the Liberals have always had a disdain for our military. They have no respect for them. They don't mind neglecting them. And the bureaucrats in Ottawa aren't working in the office and they don't care. They're not being able to find the right equipment, buy it, and ship it to Latvia. The Danes can do that with our own equipment. Yeah. But not the Department of National Defense and not the Trudeau government. See what I mean about being disgusting? For Post Media, I'm Lauren Gunter.
So well done, Lauren Gunter. It's good to know that we have some folks out there that are really supportive of the military that are calling this stuff out. Colleen is saying, so they're sending them in for the slaughter. Yeah, pretty much. And
there certainly will be
new. Oh, sorry. I got an autoplay going there. That's nothing new. I'm always pointing back to the beginning of the Afghan war when they sent us over there in green uniforms into the desert. We didn't even have desert cam to issue to the troops. So we just went ahead and sent them in green. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me because I was in the military at that time. I had just gotten in, and the minister got out there and said, oh, well, you know, the green is actually better because most of the fighting is taking place at night and it's a darker color. So If they had that desert cam, then, you know, they would just be more visible at night and blah, blah, blah. And the thing was that people around the office would go around saying it like they believed it. Like people in the military were going around talking like that, like they believed it. And I was just a young guy at the time. I was 22 and I was like, you think maybe we should tell the other nations that they should be wearing green cam? There was also the Iltis Jeep, more to the point of Colleen's comment here. So they're sending them in for the slaughter. Well, yeah, they sent Canadians in for the slaughter in Afghanistan as well, sending them in the boomer hand-me-down Cold War era Iltis Jeeps, which were grossly inadequate for countering the IED threat. And they told them to put their flak vests, or, you know, frag vests, whatever they could spare, on the floor of the Jeep, like that was going to do anything. So very analogous, I think, to mask mandates. Put a diaper on your face and you won't get COVID, or you won't spread COVID, or some such nonsense. Put your frag vests on the floor of the Jeep and go driving over IED laden roads in Afghanistan. So it's all a lot of, you know, like these, it's just to make people feel like they're doing something. And it's all this vapid, empty virtue signaling across the board. And Pete over on Rumble is saying, I see masked every day. Yeah, I'm out on the East Coast here in Cape Breton Island, and I see masked people going around every day. You know, I try to be patient with them and stuff like that, but really, I just kind of feel sorry for them, the people that are still, you know, in that bubble, that they love Big Brother, then they got to show their fealty to this regime with their mask on. Look at me, I'm helping. That's the Ralph Wiggum meme that always comes to mind whenever I see somebody wearing a mask. You know, I'm not sure if I got the videos lined up. A lot of young people are putting videos out there about how hard it is to get started in Canada. It absolutely is. And, you know, my two kids are in their 20s, and I have no idea how the hell they're supposed to get started. If anything, I kind of think maybe I might want to buy a bigger house in case they got to move back in at some point. So, but here is tone deaf Chrystia Freakland giving her address to graduating class. Let me see if it says where here. Freakland recently gave the most depressing graduation speech of all time. It was so bad, the audience simply disengaged, focusing entirely on Fenway Jumbotron as a form of escapism from the unhinged dystopian ranting. Watch it to the end. You won't be disappointed. Okay, let's do that.
Our time of tranquility is over, and we are living in an age of change. We're living through what President Biden, on a visit to my country in March, called an inflection point. A time of transformation, he said, that comes once every 5 or 6 generations. Now, like it or not, you are graduating into that inflection point. And as some of the very best educated people on our planet, you have the rare and precious opportunity to shape it. So, what is this inflection point? What is this upheaval which is going to the roots of humanity itself? There are many ways to describe this transformational moment, but I think they all come down to one fundamental question. Does capitalist democracy still work? That's the question being posed around kitchen tables in my country and this one, as parents wonder if our children can count on capitalist democracy's essential promise of a future more prosperous than our present. It is the question being posed in the muddy and bloodied trenches of Bakhmut as Ukraine's brave Democrats resist the invading forces of Putin's dictatorship. And it is the
Putin's
question being posed by our shrinking glaciers and our warming oceans, which are asking us, wordlessly but emphatically, if democratic societies can rise to the existential challenge of climate change. Now, these are, of course, huge and fundamental challenges. I'm not here to counsel despair or retreat. Yeats famously said of another generation that came of age in a liminal moment, that the best lacked all conviction, while the worst were full of passionate intensity.
Good Lord. Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff to unpack there, like the projection. She's the worst or full of intensity. Yeah, that's you. You're the worst, and you're intensely unlikable. And Alpha of Debate is over on YouTube is saying, how is this not a soft sell for communism from Freakland? Yeah, it is a soft sell for communism, a not so soft sell at that. You know, she's talking about, oh, is capitalism working anymore? Capitalism works fine, but like any tool, it can be used for the wrong purposes, and that's what we see happening across the West right now. Is the younger generations are being exploited. And this has been going on for a long time. I talk about it a lot. It's like the higher the boomers go, the worse it gets for the rest of us. When my generation was coming on the scene, like there were no white collar jobs available for us. That's Generation X, and we follow the generational archetype of the nomad. And the nomad is so named because we have to leave our birthplaces to find our fortunes elsewhere. We tend to be very interested in military service. And, you know, the oil patch boom, all that happened with the Gen Xers coming into the workforce. We tend to be the blue collar class and the soldiers, whereas the boomers tend to be the white collar class. Yeah, when we were coming on the scene and trying to buy houses, it was like you had to buy a 30-year-old fixer upper that a boomer would have bought for half the price they were selling it for new. And it's only gotten worse since then. Now, you know, geez, it's like Pierre Poilievre said, you know, this shack in Vancouver, he took some heat over that, but this shack in Vancouver, you know, is worth $1 million or whatever it is. How the hell is a new person supposed, or a young person supposed to get a start in this country? Well, there's no answers coming from these people. Of course, they expect them to be serfs, and you know, it's up to these people to really knuckle down and solve all these problems that their elders have created. So totally out of touch, typical for Chrystia Freakland. The thing, it's very standard. And Ali's dad over on Rumble is saying, oh yes, global boiling was a balmy 62 Fahrenheit at 6:30 this morning in Southwest Ontario, burning up. Yeah, global boiling is again, it's farcical, the kind of stuff that these people are saying. Anyway, all we can do, I think, is laugh. And I often talk about humor as a coping strategy for humans. So, and there's the only thing blacker than Justin Trudeau's heart is a soldier's humor. And it's a coping strategy. That was kind of an insight that I think I gained while I was in Afghanistan. You want to hear the kind of things that soldiers say when they're in that kind of an environment. You know, it's really something. So, next up, let's see, moving on from Chrystia Freakland. Okay, before I get into that, I'm going to jump over here because, like I said, I was still ordering my tabs. I just had so much that I wanted to talk about, and I guess my time appreciation kind of sucks. But that's there's a Tucker Carlson interview here with Vivek Ramaswamy. We'll get to that in a sec. I'm going to jump over here. I got a bunch of other tabs kind of lined up. Let's see now. Here's National Compost again, and Adam Pankratz is saying Stephen Guilbeault's net zero plan is laughably impossible. If we go the hydro route, which 22 rivers would he suggest we dam up to provide this electricity? That's the thing. These people they're the idea people. It's up to the rest of us to figure out how to make it work. They don't provide any solutions. They only create problems, and then they come up with these grand schemes to solve the problems they created. And whose responsibility is it to implement these schemes? Well, it's on all the young people. It's on the rest of us. It's on the average Canadian. The average Canadian shouldn't even know their government exists, but let alone be tasked by them in this way all the time, coerced into taking vaccines and wearing masks and so on and so forth. Okay, so here we go. Canada's Minister of Environmental Magic, Stephen Guilbeault, is at it again. His next trip, more daring than scaling even the tallest skyscraper, is to eliminate fossil fuels from Canada's electrical grid by 2035. If rammed through, this latest government act of wand waving will cost Canadians more than a lower standard of living and drag our federal finances further towards the abyss. His plan is already encountering pushback as it comes up against that which Minister Guilbeault hates most, reality. Yeah, no kidding. And I think this is some pretty good commentary here where they're talking about the lower standard of living, because that is essentially what happens to all the generations coming up behind the boomers, is they're expected to accept a lower standard of living than the boomers' elders were able to provide for them when they were coming up. That's kind of what we see. And this is what I talk about. You know, the capitalism is just a tool. It can be used for good or evil. That's what we see, is this kind of economic exploitation that's been going on since the boomers moved into the investment class. You know, they got low interest student loans, low tuition rates, and meaningful degree programs. The rest of us get high tuition rates, high interest student loans, massive student debt, and a bunch of garbly-gook commie BS for degree programs. Okay, next paragraph here. Let us first consider the facts of the matter. Canada's electricity grid is already very clean by international standards. Approximately 82% of our electricity currently comes from renewable and non-carbon emitting sources, with the majority accounted for by our vast hydroelectric capabilities. The distribution is not even, however. In BC, electricity is 87% hydro and almost 95% renewable energy already. And in Ontario, over 90% of electricity is from non-emitting sources, the majority being nuclear. In Alberta, the story is very different. Non-renewable sources account for about 90% of electrical generation there. It is hardly surprising, then, that BC and Ontario have remained silent while Alberta has blown a, quote, natural gas-fueled gasket over the Liberal plan. Yeah, there are geographic challenges in different geographic regions. There are a lot of rivers that can be dammed in places like BC and Ontario. That's not really the case in Alberta, and it's not really the case in Eastern Canada either. There's the one hydroelectric dam there that fired up in Newfoundland, but for the most part, like we just don't have those options as readily available out east in Alberta as they do in some of these other provinces. So we end up getting hit a lot harder by these carbon pricing schemes. Back to the article. All provinces should, however, be careful. 82% clean energy is not 100%, and that is 18%, and that 18% is meaningless, both in terms of quality of life and expense. The key question is, what does that 18% actually represent? In 2019, Canada generated 632.3 terawatt hours of electricity. If 82% produced little or no carbon emissions, that still leaves 113. Well, it's great for cooking with. You know, you can cook during the power outages and stuff like that. So it's pretty fabulous, actually. BC is currently building a massive hydroelectric dam called Site C. This project, for which planning began in the 1990s and construction only started in 2015, will cost approximately $16 billion and generate 5,100 gigawatt hours of electricity for British Columbia. That's 5.1 terawatt hours. So were we to use hydro to make up for the electrical shortfall eliminating fossil fuels creates, at a minimum, we would need to build 22 Site C equivalents. At BC prices, that's $352 billion. Even if we could pretend to ignore that mind-boggling sum, does anyone believe we could build 22 such infrastructure projects in 12 years, given our recent track record? If you do, I have land to sell you upon which to build them. Yeah, I got some land in Florida I'd like to sell you. That's kind of the expression. Of course, most of Florida is swampland. So perhaps we could use nuclear. Well, yes, we could. However, anyone in Ontario familiar with the Darlington nuclear plant fiasco can tell you what magnitude of costs we're talking about. The current refurbishment, which on time and on budget, though it will still cost nearly $13 billion. Its generation capacity is large at 31 terawatt hours annually, but current costs are only a refurbishment. To build a new plant is far more expensive. In Georgia, the phase 3 and 4 of the Ret'd plant will cost over $30 billion US, while generating 17.5 terawatt hours of power. This means Canada could be looking at 5 or more reactors and build anywhere between $52 billion on an unrealistic low end and $262 billion on the Georgia experience end. So there we have two of the biggest realistic options to replace fossil fuels in our electrical grid. This raises some obvious questions for our Minister of Environmental and Financial Magic. First, if we go the hydro route, which 22 rivers would he suggest we dam up to provide this electricity? Second, if we went nuclear, how would he convince the communities this is a good idea, given how many countries are phasing out nuclear? Third, where is the money for all this coming from? Great question. Where is all this money coming from? I guess they're just going to keep printing. No matter the option chosen, Canada would theoretically be on the hook for $300 billion or more by 2035 in order to hit the current goals and timelines laid out. Moving to a grid that is free of carbon emissions is a laudable goal, but the timelines and plan are highly unrealistic. I'm not entirely convinced that going carbon-free is necessarily a laudable goal, by the way. Right now, for example, Canada has enormous reserves of natural gas, which could replace coal generation. There is a cleaner burning alternative and would be far less expensive in terms of transition than what Guilbeault is currently proposing. It is also a fuel the world is screaming for. Natural gas allows Canada to reduce emissions at home and abroad, all while generating economic revenues for Canadians. Bizarrely, our government still doesn't see the business case for gas, while the US and Qatar watch the dollars roll in from their exports. Yeah, we have tons of natural gas. We have so much natural gas here in Canada. Like, we could probably just pipe it out to everybody, and everybody could be cooking with I mean, it wouldn't be profitable right away with that kind of an investment because of the sparse population of most areas in Canada. But man, oh man, like, we are so resource rich, and we're just not allowed to access those resources. That's all for China, I think. The net zero electrical grid proposal by the government also ignores the increase in electricity that needed as we move away from fossil fuels generally. Economy. The numbers we had discussed are all current electrical demands. Future demands could be significantly higher. In BC, estimates are that electrical production would need to double by 2055 to fully electrify all vehicles in the province. If we can expand that thinking to the country as a whole, then suddenly we're damming up 44 rivers or building more than 10 nuclear reactors while selling out over $600 billion. The conversation around electrification and fossil fuel elimination is frequently driven by ideology and ignorance of financial implications. Moving toward a greener world is desirable, but the costs associated with this shift are stupefyingly huge and the timelines long. We need an honest discussion about what is truly needed to achieve the lofty rhetoric governments so love. Let us remind Minister Guilbeault that energy policy is not created with a magic wand, despite what he would like to believe. Not bad, but all this stuff about the necessity to go green. I mean, green, the world's getting greener. It is getting greener because of higher levels of carbon. It's, we see this kind of regreening all over the place. And I think that plant life is by and large kind of starved because right now, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere is at one of the lowest points that it's ever been. And I talk about things sometimes, I presented some different ideas around things like biomineralization. Carbon was probably at its highest when life exploded during the Cambrian period and the Precambrian period. And then that would have been like a lot of jellyfish and stuff like that. These invertebrates, so a lot of invertebrate life. And life gained the capacity to biomineralize right around that time, which it does for the purpose of creating shells for a lot of like sea life and different invertebrate species, and also for bones for a lot of the vertebrate species. And that traps carbon. That's what it does. Biomineralization means they turn carbon into calcium to create shells, to create bones, and then that gets trapped through the process of fossilization. And I mean, we call them fossil fuels. That's what it is. It's carbon that used to be in the carbon cycle when life exploded, that has been taken out of the carbon cycle through this process of biomineralization taking place over millions of years. So I think it's reasonable to ask that question. Yeah, I mean, is life essentially freezing itself out because the ice caps are only about 800,000 to 15 million years old, depending on which area you're talking about. But I think Antarctica, the ice sheet down there, it's only like 800,000 years old or something like that. So it's a lot of hype, I think, when it comes to all this stuff about global warming and sea levels rising and blah, blah, blah. Like all of the water, the ice caps are relatively new on the geological time scale. So it's a lot of fear mongering and hype as far as I'm able to see. Okay, so here's the Conservative Party, CPCHQ, on Twitter, and they say Minister Guilbeault sits as an exec on an organization controlled by the Communist Party in Beijing. Now he's traveling there. He must resign his position immediately, end funding to this communist-led organization, and denounce Beijing's interference in Canada's democracy. You think that's got anything to do with all this crap about green economy and destroying our energy sector and making life unaffordable for Canadians to the point that we can't afford to eat or pay rent and drive us out into the streets so we can live in tent cities, own nothing, be happy, live in the pod, eat the bugs? That's my suspicion. I strongly suspect that that's what's happening and that this is part of the PSYOP. To weaken the West sufficiently so that China can pull ahead economically and become globally dominant to the point that, we'll be taking orders from them. And here is Danielle Smith, and she says, after a recent news report that Minister Stephen Guilbeault is a vice chair of a CCP environmental group, I am concerned why the minister wants to force Alberta to 2035. But it is okay with China getting there by 2060. So, yeah, that's what we're seeing. I don't think China's ever going to get there. I don't think they believe this crap themselves. They're opening all kinds of new coal-fired power plants and selling us all the green technology that is a failure, essentially, with the windmills and the solar panels and stuff like that. I'm not saying those products aren't useful, but are they a replacement for the energy grid that we have right now? No. They're not. They're never going to be able to meet our needs. Here is Danielle Smith on CTV talking about this. So here we go.
We are having this discussion, of course, at a time when there are critical conversations around the world on climate change. Much of the country, including your province, has been ravaged by wildfires this season. Do you believe there is a connection to climate change?
Well, look, everybody is on target on 2050. That was decided a couple of years ago at COP26. And so all of the industrialized provinces are moving in that direction for exactly that reason. Everybody knows that we need to reduce emissions. But I'm also watching that China is a billion plus population. They don't have a target until 2060. India, as I understand it, doesn't have a target until 2070.
But in terms of a link, Premier, do you believe that climate change and the unprecedented wildfires we've been seeing this summer are at all related?
All I know is in my province, we had 650 fires and 500 of them were human caused. So we have to make sure that when people know that when it's dry out there and we get into forest fire season, that they're being a lot more careful, because anytime you end up with an ignition that happens, it can have devastating consequences. And so that's what I would hope that we can educate the public on that front as well.
Not bad, but a bit of a cop out there from Danielle Smith. I'd really like to see her double down a hell of a lot more. She still seems to be kind of doing the little tap dance for the media. But she's the one who announced that they were bringing in all of these arson investigators into Alberta to go out there and, hopefully round up all these NDP supporters and Antifa that are setting these fires. So I would have liked to see her stand on that and call that out and say, no, this is arson. It's not climate change. They're setting these fires and putting us all in danger and destroying wealth, destroying homes, destroying lives, so they can push this narrative of climate change. And I've shown like some statistics and things like that in the past. During the Nova Scotia fires, like I pulled up the record here, and we could see that way more land area was burned and way more fires raged back in the early 90s as opposed to this year. So it's a part of the psyop. I think the arson is part of the tactic to fearmonger us into destroying our economy so we can be dominated by China. So here's the Toronto Sun, Brian Lilly, who's, kind of controlled opposition because he's dominated by his woman, but not bad usually. So Galbo warns China as ally, wants China as ally, serves as advisor to Beijing. Trudeau's environment minister is picking fights with Canada's premiers while advising the government of coal-powered China. Yeah, they are coal-powered, like big time. And I just saw somebody over on Rumble there. Who said this? ST Rolowny says China paints the side of mountains green. Is that true? that would be pretty hilarious. That's the kind of thing that commies do, right? They're so superficial, and it's all about appearances, and they think we're all stupid and we can't see what they're doing. But yeah, that sounds about right. So. Expects demise over on Rumble is saying CCP supporters, you mean? Yeah, CCP supporters probably setting these fires. Like they're unwitting CCP supporters. Stalin didn't call progressives useful idiots for nothing. So that's what we see. And am I saying that right? Is it Xbex demise or is it like Zbex demise? Is it like xylophone X, or is it Xbex demise? Let me know in the comments there. So. Because I know you're always commenting, and I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Okay, here's the article. Justin Trudeau's environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault, is pulling double duty as an official advisor to the Chinese government. Turns out he also wants to make Beijing an ally on the environmental issue and will head to coal-powered China as at the end of this month after lecturing Canada's premiers on using fossil fuels. During an exclusive interview with Guilbeault, granted to environmental activist media outlet The National Observer, he acknowledged that he'd be criticized for this trip. Quote, maybe some political opponents will try to attack me, close quote, for traveling to China amid tensions between the two countries. Guilbeault told The National Observer, quote, I am clearly a lightning rod for some of them, but I think Canadians in general will understand how important it is. We can't solve climate change. You can't solve the international biodiversity issue without working with countries like China, close quote. Yeah, I'm not sure that we're working with them. They don't want us to work with them. They want us to work for them. So it's probably a big waste of time, and they think we're suckers. It might be true that you can't solve Canada's climate change without China, but this is also a country that is engaged in kidnapping of two of our citizens, regularly engages in economic warfare with Canada, and has been credibly accused of interfering in our democracy. And I'm pretty sure that the two Michaels are still being escorted around by what appear to be CCP operatives, the two Chinese women that they showed up in the House of Commons with. And everybody's like, who are these women? They're obviously not their wives. So what's going on here? Anyone would be justified in pointing out the foolishness of Guilbeault looking to find an ally in Beijing. Guilbeault is going to a meeting of the China Council for International Cooperation and Environmental Development. It is described as a think tank, but is actually a creation of China's Ministry of Ecology and Environment. The ministry, part of the Communist Party of China, selects the leadership as well as, quote, providing guidance for its operations, implementation, and daily management, close quote. The council is tasked with conducting research and offering proposals to the Chinese government. Guilbeault is also currently listed as executive vice chairperson of the executive committee of the CCICED. He says alongside Ding Xuanzang, who serves as the chair of the CCICED. Xuanzang is also the first vice premier of the People's Republic of China and stands just behind Xi Jinping in the pecking order of the Communist Party of China. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll be very happy to be telling us what we're going to do with our economy. There truly is no length that the Trudeau Liberals won't go to cozy up to China. It's one thing for diplomats to have discussions to deal with irritants and international conferences, but this is something else. Guilbeault wants to treat a country that undermines our democracy, that intimidates and harasses Chinese Canadians as an ally. He is a formal advisor to the government of China on the environment while also serving as Canada's environment minister. It's an untenable situation. Yeah, they don't understand conflicts of interest, though. This news comes at a time when the Trudeau government continues to drag its feet on calling a public inquiry into China's interference in Canada. That interference goes well beyond interfering in election campaigns. It turns out that they most recently conducted a disinformation campaign against Conservative MP Michael Chong in May of this year, and in the past have targeted New Democrat MP Jenny Kwan. They don't target Liberal MPs, it seems, which might be why the Trudeau government isn't quick to call an inquiry, or why they turn a blind eye to China, setting up police stations to intimidate Chinese Canadians. It's because the Liberal Party is a proxy for the Chinese Communist Party. They are working together. They work for them. As for China's environmental record, it's horrible, and nothing Guilbeault says or does will change that. According to our World in Data, run by Oxford University, China's CO2 emissions in 2021 were 54.59 billion tons, up from 52.59 billion tons in 2020. That means China's annual increase of 2 billion tons is more than all of Canada's emissions, pegged at 777 million tons. That is a great point, that little paragraph right there. They actually upped their carbon emissions in the last couple of years more than all carbon emissions in Canada, not by a little bit either. 2 billion as opposed to 777 million. That's almost triple. So just the increase in the last couple of years of carbon emissions coming from China is almost triple the total carbon emissions of Canada. And while Guilbeault picks fights with provincial governments across the country, across Canada, for generating a small and shrinking amount of electricity from coal or natural gas, China last year built roughly 2 coal plants per week. According to the group, Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, the coal power capacity of the generating stations China put under construction last year was 6 times that of the rest of the world. These are Stephen Guilbeault's friends and allies. Canadians, it seems, are his enemies. Yeah, I think even some of the more mainstream folks are starting to wake up to the reality here. So well done, Brian Lilly, even though you are dominated by your woman. Okay, here is, who is this? Gateway Pundit, and this article is related to January 6th, detainees, a national disgrace, photos leaked of horrific January 6th prisoner abuse, tortured 5 months in isolation in a closet room with light on and a bucket for a toilet. Where are the ACLU, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch? Great question. Look at this poor bastard. He is in a very small cell. This is, geez, that might be 2.5 feet across and what, 8 feet long, something like that. This is incredible. Hard to imagine that this is going on in the freest country in the world. But as we're seeing, this is what happens in the fourth turning. It's an era of balkanization. So this is in DC, 100% ideologically captured, and it is Zebek's demise, I see. So thanks for letting me know. This, I have been saying this is what they wanted to do with the trucker convoy. I was saying that on the ground in Ottawa. I was like, guys, you got to be ready to be arrested. That's what they're going to do. They're going to come out and they're going to arrest us. They're running the PSYOP. It's all the same language that they used around January 6th, where they're calling us all white supremacists, and they're dying to use that I word, the insurrection word, so they can round us all up as insurrectionists, everybody in the freedom movement. So, and the only difference really was that the trucker convoy was spontaneous. January 6th was scheduled ahead of time, so they were able to plan and prepare for January 6th, whereas they were not prepared to deal with the trucker convoy because it was a legitimate grassroots and spontaneous movement. So they got caught flat-footed, and they banked on being able to get us to react violently to the police action. But nobody fought back. It was incredible. I'm so proud of Canadians, at least the ones who were there, for the way that they handled that. Just take the beating, guys. I think I said that standing at the monument. Just take the beating. And yeah, that was That's what we saw happen. I was so proud of them. They didn't find a single weapon anywhere in the convoy, so they made it a hell of a lot harder for them to do this kind of thing with the detentions. Mind you, we still have the Coots 4. We don't want to forget about those guys. I got a couple of tabs lined up about them as well. But yeah, that's what they were going for. It's this. It's to take those political dissidents, anybody who represents any kind of an impediment to their agenda, and just destroy them. January 6th, political prisoner Ryan Samuel has been held in prison without trial now since January of 2021. During his 2.5 years without trial, Ryan has been moved around to 17 different facilities. Ryan has been beaten, abused, tortured, and neglected since his arrest in January of 2021. Earlier this week, the Gateway Pundit received exclusive photos from Ryan Simpson's prison cell at the FDC in Philadelphia. Oh, this is Philadelphia. It's not DC. The cell was a size of a closet with a light on at all time. The cell had a thin blue mattress, no sheets or blankets, no clothing, and he was kept here for 5 months straight. The photos are just shocking. This is taking place in America today. This is who we are. Ryan told the Gateway Pundit in a conversation this week, quote, "I was kept in a hard cell, and in particular, in that particular cell about 5-6 months. I even told you what was happening is the judge was actually calling, trying to get in contact with me because I wasn't in a named cell. They were missing me, and they were saying I wasn't showing up in court. They were saying I wasn't showing up to medical, but they were pretty much keeping me in there. Like I said, it was cold. The light was on. There was there's zero window. And that followed me from Virginia. When I was in Virginia, it was the same exact conditions," close quote. So that's alarming that even being transferred between facilities and they're still administering the same treatment for these people. Ryan described the same situation in Virginia. Quote, "It was a Central Regional Virginia jail. I was kept in and they called it booking hard cell. This is, you get zero phone, zero commissary, zero clothing because they think that you're going to hang yourself and you're on constant surveillance. You're under surveillance constantly. The light has to be on 24/7. You're locked in a cell. There is no getting out. The windows in Virginia were covered by a black mat, so you weren't able to see. And it's constant nothing. It's deprivation of everything. And that is the punishment. That's how we punish people severely, is through deprivation. And that's, of course, that applied to all the mandates, everything. It has to do with demoralizing and breaking us. And this is just astonishing. Look at these pictures. Like this poor bastard. Ryan believed today. Where is the Republican Party? Where is the ACLU, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch? Please contact these organizations here." And they give some links. Ryan is not alone. Numerous January 6 prisoners have been held for months in torturous conditions. Dozens have been sentenced to extreme sentences for non-violent crimes. This is a horrific chapter in American history. It must be confronted. Yes, thank you very much, Gateway Pundit, for keeping an eye on that. And that's what they want to do in here in Canada. They didn't get the false flag that they were looking for with the trucker convoy. But they're still doubling down on the same rhetoric about all this extremism and the far right and all this crap in Canada. So they can get everybody scared of anybody involved with the freedom movement enough to let them tolerate this kind of abuse on our citizens, I think. And speaking of the abuse on our citizens, here is the V4F website, and this is the hashtag Coots bumper sticker. And we have a picture of the bumper sticker up here. It says innocent until proven guilty. And they have the pictures of these 4 men, 4 Alberta men arrested from Coots, Alberta, jail since February 2022, trial June 2023. The difference with the Coots blockade, I think, was the word blockade, that they were able to do that. And there are all these purported weapons charges involved and stuff like that. So it's not clear to me. I'm very suspicious, obviously, of the picture that they showed with the weapons in it. Donald Best was on the program here last week saying that's not how you handle evidence. Yeah, I find that to be very compelling. It doesn't look like evidence to me either. Very suspicious, that picture. None of this, not like the different pieces of evidence are touching. They're not in plastic bags, evidence bags, as they should be, because they need to be able to analyze them forensically for fingerprints and DNA. So it's all contaminated just from taking that picture. It's a big part of the PSYOP as far as I can tell. So these guys are basically our January 6th detainees. They tried to run that same program in Ottawa, I think, but it was unsuccessful. But these guys are our January 6th detainees. And here is another good picture here. And this is Anthony Olenek or Tony Olenek and Jerry Morin, Chris Carbert, and Chris Lysak. So yeah, we're staying with these guys, standing with them as well at V4F. And if you want to buy this bumper sticker, it says, help raise awareness and funds for some of Canada's political prisoners. 4 men sit in jail, denied bail, and kept in solitary confinement. They have been denied access to medications, family, and have been treated worse than the worst criminals in Canada. It's been over 550 days, and they have been left to suffer. Why? What is very scary is that this could happen to any of us. So help support these men with their legal battles by purchasing a bumper sticker. 100% of the proceeds go to these 4 men. Many Canadians are unaware of what is going on. Help raise awareness and show your support. Get yours now, and please consider writing the men letters of encouragement. So I'm very proud of this initiative for V4F for taking this on. And we do have the V4F support fund that we do every month and stuff like that. But this is kind of a side initiative that's separate from that. So like it says, all of the proceeds from the purchase of the bumper stickers will go to the legal defense of these 4 political prisoners. And here is the Western Standard. Freedom Convoy panel hits 18th month of meeting. Parliament Special Joint Committee on the Declaration of the Emergency entered its 18th month of deliberations with no deadline in sight for a final report about the Freedom Convoy, according to Blacklock's reporter. Quote, it was agreed that the committee suspend its work, close quote, said Special Joint Committee in a memo. MPs complained that we're waiting to see all records in the 2 official languages. They voted to wait for translation of thousands of pages of documents compiled by the Public Order Emergency Commission, which finished its work in February. And that is a cop-out. That is crap. You know, when you're generating a government report, like the final report, yeah, you send it for translation, but you don't hold a committee up so they can produce their records in both official languages. You know, if these MPs are unable to read English, they have translators at their disposal. But most MPs are bilingual anyway, so I don't buy this crap one little bit. This is obviously a stalling tactic. This is not a report that they're producing for the public. These are their own records. Why the hell are they translating records that are internal to a parliamentary committee? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's not the service to the public that we guarantee in both official languages. This is just them working. So yeah, I call BS on that. The committee is mandated to investigate Cabinet's justification for invoking the Emergencies Act against the Freedom Convoy in 2022. It has met 25 times to date without reaching any conclusions. Big surprise there. Quote, it's become obvious that the Liberal members of committee were not prepared to permit the release of any government documents, close quote, said Conservative MP Larry Brock. And Larry Brock has been pretty awesome throughout all of this. Bloc Québécois MP Rahel Fortin said it needed complete documents. If they can't be complete, there should be an explanation, close quote, said Fortin. Liberal MPs and senators on the committee voted 6-5 to block the release of uncensored documents about the Freedom Convoy in October. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see. Quote, we will have to discuss this further, close quote, said Fortin. The committee ordered Public Safety Canada and the federal agencies to surrender all security assessments and legal opinions the federal government relied upon in conducting the Freedom Convoy threatened public order. Threatened public order. Okay. That the Freedom Convoy threatened public order. And yeah, I would really like to see that legal opinion. That's all classified. The Emergency Measures Act inquiry didn't really produce any meaningful information. So we got to get, that was a dog and pony show, just to whitewash the whole thing. And we got to get down to original sources here and see these documents. And we are entitled to see them. I mean, this is being done in our names. So let's see what the hell is going on here. Progressive Senate Group's Senator Peter Harder said he thinks, quote, we should be realistic as to what our expectations ought to be, close quote. Quote, those documents by definition are secure and classified, close quote, said Harder. Yeah, and we can declassify documents. I know that. I worked in the military for 20 years, and I had a top secret security clearance the entire time. It's not that difficult to declassify documents, and parliamentarians have no idea how to do these kinds of things, but we have an entire security apparatus that is very well funded and paid. CSIS and the RCMP and people like that could very easily redact documents to avoid the release of any kind of sensitive material. The problem is the only sensitivity is that it would be embarrassing and damning for the people involved if we were to find out what really happened here. So they're hiding behind this veil of secrecy on these national security grounds, but the actual security threat is coming from the government itself. Liberal MP Yasser Naqvi, Ottawa Centre, said the committee was, quote, talking about a lot of documents, close quote. Justice Minister and Attorney General Arif Virani said he would consider this move unsuitable and unadvisable. Conservative MP Glenn Motz, Medicine Hat, Carleton, Alberta, argued people were entitled to see uncensored records explaining why Cabinet invoked the Emergencies Act. Quote, we can certainly ask for unredacted documents, close quote, said Motz. Yes, we certainly can. It's a stalling tactic. It's a bunch of BS that they can't unredact these documents. Usually documents remain classified to protect sources. Who are the sources that we're trying to protect, and who are we trying to protect them from exactly? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, and speaking of a lot of Chinese interference, I saw this over on Facebook, and this is somebody in PEI doing a post here. He's talking about a Globe story. I didn't pull up the story, but I just thought I would post this because I've been talking about PEI quite a bit around here. I'm pretty concerned about what's happening in PEI. It's pretty close to home for me, living in Cape Breton. So here is a gentleman over on Facebook, and he says, the Mercer report confirms that there are 3 registered monasteries, all Chinese, that have not yet disclosed where they will be constructed. There are Compassion and Grace. They are the Compassion and Grace Institute, the Guanying Monastery, and the Qiyun Monastery. Members of these 3 are now living and renting spaces. We don't know where they eventually will locate, but judging from what we have seen in Heatherdale and Brudenell, they will be massive dominating entities within whatever communities are chosen. Will they be in Cardigan or Murray River or Sturgeon or Lower Montague or perhaps in Stratford or Summerside? 2 things about this are troublesome. If they locate in Southeast Kings, the area will be completely swamped, though I will maintain that that is already the situation. This is reckless and foolish immigration policy to allow such a concentration of newcomers in one small area, especially ones that are connected, well organized, and on a mission before they even arrive. That is not immigration, that is checkbook colonization. I like that phrase, checkbook colonization, and that is what's happening in Canada. As far as I'm able to tell, is we are being colonized by China. On the other hand, if one or more of these Chinese monasteries locates in Stratford or Summerside, it will be a clear sign that Bliss and Wisdom has concluded that the politicians on the island are so inept and compliant that they can plan on more than a toehold in Kings County. Does that sound far-fetched? Well, that just depends on whether or not you've been paying attention. Thanks to PNP and other initiatives, much groundwork has already been laid in both Stratford and Summerside. We do well to recognize that the long-term objective in all of this is not to gain a toehold, but to apply a chokehold. Very well said. That seems to be what's happening over there in PEI. It's a pretty vulnerable target, small population, small landmass. Probably high value, has potentially a naval base in North America. So, very concerning what's happening over there. All right. Here is, I'm back to the Stephen Guilbeault article here. So I'll just go ahead and get back to my regular tabs. I get that out of here. Okay, so we're over to Tucker Carlson now. And Yeah, this is the interview that he's doing with Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm just going to show like the first couple of minutes here. Vivek, I think, is a pretty strong candidate, and Tucker Carlson is tweeting out, Vivek Ramaswamy is the youngest Republican presidential candidate ever. He's worth listening to. So here we go.
The government absolutely lied to us. The 9/11 Commission lied. The FBI lied. There's a
Oh, Chris Stacey is really late. He says, how many push-ups? How about 50? You're an hour and a half late, bro. Holy smokes. Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's go with 50.
federal case of victims on 9/11 that want accountability. I don't think they would have come for me if this was false. What do we know about Hunter Biden's dealings? What do we know about the truth of what happened on January 6th? What do we know about that Nashville shooter manifesto? Yes, we can handle the truth. Just give me the hard truth. It feels like we're on the cusp of chaos. Oh, there's something going on. I mean, I think we're like in a 1776 moment in this country. We are driving.
We are. I've heard him say this before. I say we. I tend to think of North Americans as we, or we in the West. But yeah, when he says it's 1776 moment, that is a reference to the American Revolution. And the American Revolution was a fourth turning. If you count back at 4 generational interviews, because like I say, the fourth turning happens every 4 generations when the boomer generation born in the wake of the previous major crisis, because that's what happens after a major crisis, is the generation that surmounts the crisis. They build the institutions to new heights. There's a huge economic upswing and a population boom. And that boomer generation born in the wake of that crisis is the one when they reach peak institutional power in their early elderhood, when they're at the peaks of their careers just prior to retirement, they tyrannize us. And that's what's happening right now. That is the cycle of history. So if you count back at 4 generational interviews, you'll see the Second World War, the American Civil War, and the American Revolution. So he's very right in saying that.
Russia further into China's arms as we arm Ukraine, further strengthening what I see as the single greatest military threat. We are dependent on a tiny island nation off the southeast coast of China for our entire modern way of life. I will not send our sons and daughters to die over somebody else's nationalistic dispute. End the Ukraine war, reduce our economic dependence on China, weaken the Russia-China alliance.
I'm not sure what is controversial about any of that. They're a dumber group than the foreign policy Republicans. Where are we now?
There's a deeper void and vacuum that we have to fill with an affirmative alternative vision of our own. And that takes courage.
The first Republican.
Okay, there you go. You can go ahead and check out that video. It's about 45 minutes on Tucker Carlson's Twitter. I bet you it's a really great interview. I haven't had time to watch it yet, but Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, is a very promising candidate. Jane is commenting, yes, PEI is in big trouble. The CCP has already taken over here at nearly every level of government: municipal, arts, culture, business, social, and land. Massive land swaths. They own nearly all of the heritage properties, tourist businesses, and mansions. They run the government. They have brought incognito police and military here, as well as a bunch of gangsters and thugs to do their business. It is surreal. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I've been showing things on the program here, a lot of these connections. It seems like everybody on not everybody, but just about everybody on every board of directors and every association over there in PEI is ethnically Chinese, has come from China. They're a first-generation immigrant, and they go back to China to receive these awards with these business associations and their ties to United Front, which, of course, is the Chinese Communist Party's proxy for foreign interference. Yeah, it's really concerning what's happening over there in PEI, especially because it's a vulnerable population. I think it's a small population, easily dominated by a country like China. Here's Donald Best, and this is on the Helen Gruss trial, another political prisoner, so to speak. I know she's not in jail or anything like that, but she's definitely being persecuted. So let's keep an eye on this. And he's tweeting out, prosecution theatrics cause uproarious laughter at Detective Gruss's trial. Uproarious, I like that word. Do I not subscribe to him? I'm gonna go ahead and try that. Oh, he wants me to pay him. Sorry guys, I'm not paying for stuff on Twitter. But I will definitely, I had Donald on the program here last week. He was a great guest, a really great Canadian. And anyway, here is the update on Helen Gross. Quote, "This is a prosecution based on slander, innuendo, and theatrics. If this is even real evidence supporting the charge against Detective Gross, I haven't seen it," or if there is real evidence, sorry. Any doubt that the prosecution of Ottawa Police Detective Helen Gross is staged political theater was erased Wednesday as lead prosecutor Vanessa Stewart absurdly claimed in open court that she feared defense counsel Blair Ector would physically assault her. Oh my God, this is the Joe Rogan interview with Sanjay Gupta. Remember, he had Sanjay Gupta on to talk about how CNN lied about ivermectin and all this crap, and then Sanjay Gupta went away from that saying, "I feared that Joe Rogan was going to leap over the counter and throttle me by my neck." Jesus, people, like, it's just civilized disagreement. That is what makes us a civilized country, is that we're able to disagree civilly. But we've lost that by and large, and so we're not as civilized as we once were. Okay, so I'm glad everybody laughed at her for that. Changing her voice to a tone of fear and serious gallery exploded with laughter at the absurdity of her statement. Shaking his head at Stewart's amateur hour theater, defense counsel Blair Ector replied, quote, "No, I am not. I would never do that. I will defend my integrity. I would never hit a woman," close quote. The laughter continued as trials officer Chris Renwick looked down at his desk and also shook his head like he too couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Yeah, that's cringe. That's what that's called. Everybody's cringing. Superintendent Renwick then cautioned all counsel to remain civil, but it was apparent where his instruction was directed. Immediately prior to Stewart's theatrical debut, Gross's lawyer had accused the prosecution of, quote, "utter bad faith," close quote, due to the fact that the prosecution had claimed in written disclosure that the Ottawa police was not claiming that Detective Gross printed a report that was focused on another officer's desk days after Gross was suspended. Yet during Wednesday's session, the prosecution implied exactly that without any evidence at all. Defense counsel Ector was correct to call out that Detective Gross is facing trial by slander and innuendo. But when the prosecution lacks evidence, there is little left but slander, innuendo, and theatrics. This and much more on my morning show stand-up on Wednesdays, Jason Levine morning show. So yeah, go and check out that. They're doing lots of deep dives over there on Jason Levine, Helen Gross, and the Coots 4 most notably. And here is a link, or here is the Give, Send, Go for Helen Gross's Legal Defense Fund. If anybody wants to give over there, the goal is $50,000. They've already raised $4,291. So go and check that out. And I see Mike V4F Quebec is one of the first comments here. He says, "A detective is supposed to investigate from all angles and will go where the evidence leads you. Shutting down your investigation before you could eliminate or show a connection to the vaccine is an injustice. The OPS should be the ones that are being investigated." Yep, no kidding. And I'll read the Give, Send, Go one-liner here. It says, "Detective Helen Gross is charged under the Police Services Act with discreditable conduct for allegedly conducting, quote-unquote, unauthorized investigations into 9 sudden infant deaths, where she sought to know the vaccine status of the mothers in January of 2022. Very similar to Mark Norman, Vice Chief of Defense Staff, being denied funding for his legal defense against the federal government. Helen Gross has been denied legal funding by the Ottawa Police Association Board of Directors. The OPA dues are mandatory for all officers and civilians of the Ottawa Police Service, and the OPA has a duty to provide, quote-unquote, fair representation to its paying members. As per the police officer's oath, Helen has a duty to serve and protect. Hence, she has resolved to challenge the quote-unquote discreditable conduct charge before the police tribunal. Helen has already accrued over $40,000 in legal fees, which she has paid out of her own pocket, and depending on the length of her trial, those fees could exceed $100,000. We need to come together and bulwark around Helen in her fight for the truth. If the OPA reverses its decision and covers Helen's legal costs, She will refund the donations or give the individual donors an option to redirect their donations to a charitable organization. All funds will be transferred directly to Helen. So please go and give generously to defend this great Canadian and for standing up to this tyranny and trying to save lives. Okay, more fires. Big surprise. Climate change. Where are all the fires in China, I wonder? Okay, so Tom Morin is saying 4 teens arrested, 2 men in black on the loose. It's a Fed Tifa Climtard project. Oh, and Yellowknife is also plotted to be a smart city, just like Canary Island in Spain. That's on fire, and Maui. Yeah, that seems to be the case, I think. Very suspicious. So now Kelowna's on fire. Out in BC, this is on the heels of Maui being on fire, and I didn't even get to report. I didn't get a chance to report on the Canary Islands fires over there in Spain. A lot of reason to suspect this has more to do with grabbing land and building these 15-minute cities, something to that effect anyway. It's some kind of a land grab, or it's terrorism to push this climate change agenda. Yeah, this is some footage here of what's going on.
Going to head to Old Town to get another one of.
All right, so there's where we are. More fires now in BC. Nothing going on in New Brunswick yet. All kinds of forests there, but I don't know that anybody's going to be messing with the Irvings anytime soon. Here's Castanet, and the title of the article here is Emergency Officials Confirm Structural Losses to McDougall Creek Wildfire. Central Okanagan Emergency Operations has confirmed structural losses due to the McDougall Creek wildfire. Quote, firefighters continue to work diligently overnight on interface areas of the McDougall Creek to protect property and infrastructure in West Kelowna. The fire remains very active and unpredictable, close quote. The regional district said in a 2:25 a.m. update, quote, overall, officials have confirmed some structural loss. A full assessment of the areas affected will be undertaken in the morning. Emergency officials are expected to provide a detailed update at 10 a.m. Currently, 2,462 properties are under evacuation order and 4,801 properties are under evacuation alert. All reception centers in Kelowna West, Kelowna, and Vernon have closed for the evening. An overnight shelter center has opened at Prospera Place, 1223 Water Street, Kelowna, for evacuees requiring a place to go overnight. Small pets caged or leashed are permitted. Significant structural losses have been confirmed on the west side of Okanagan Lake due to the McDougall Creek wildfire. Video posted by prominent storm and wildfire chaser Kyle Britton just before midnight shows homes fully engulfed. So we got some video there. A lot of trees that are not on fire. A lot of trees here that are not on fire. Okay, and oh, look at this huge fire all along there. That's an hour-long video, hour 18, so I'll skip that. Okay, update at 10:40 p.m. The McDougall Creek wildfire has knocked out power for close to 4,000 West Kelowna homes Thursday night. According to BC Hydro, the power has been knocked out for homes along West Side Road, north of Highway 97, and down through Lakeview Heights area. The rapidly going wildfire has forced the evacuation of more than 1,000 properties Thursday as it grows northeast along Okanagan Lake. The West Side Road was closed to traffic earlier Thursday evening. 9:55 p.m. The city of Vernon, which is taking in evacuees from West Side Road impacted by the McDougall Creek wildfire, says most of those are being impacted by the fire are tourists. Quote, as evacuees are leaving the area, it's important to know the province of BC Emergency Support Services referral program is only available for those who have been evacuated from their permanent residence, close quote, said the city of Vernon in a statement late Thursday night. Quote, if you are a visitor to the area who has been evacuated, you are encouraged to travel home if possible. Otherwise, you will need to make your own arrangements for alternative accommodations. And here is a few more updates down here, but I'll let you guys go and check that out yourself. All kinds of information compiled there by Castanet. So thanks for that. More of the same, what I suspect to be terrorism for the purpose of advancing the climate change PSYOP. And here is some more footage right here. This is what I was trying to show, I think, with the 118 video, but Post Millennial is tweeting out, wow, pray for Canada. This is West Kelowna, BC. So here we go. Cora over on Facebook is saying these paid activists need to be stopped. Redacted just did a segment with the guy from Western Standard about the Fed spending millions to ensure that quote unquote hatred toward the alphabet soup community by parents is quote unquote stopped. Yeah, I don't know if you caught the meme here today, but LGBT as in liberty, guns, beer, tits. I support that initiative. And it's a bunch of made up. It's all part of the PSYOP. It's all to vilify Canadians, especially those of us who don't support the sexual butchering of children for money. Big scam going on there to make to turn our children into permanent medical patients in order to provide livestock for big pharma. So it's pretty it's the sickest thing going in Canada right now. Here is some more from West Kelowna. Huge fire all along the horizon there. Really something to witness. Okay, and here is PP. This is a little bit out of order, I think. But anyway, I was talking about the how are young people supposed to get started in this country, and it seems to be the case that young people are finally waking up and posting a lot on social media. I showed a couple of clips of this already. Pierre Poilievre is seizing on it. I think this is good. Again, I think he's, controlled opposition. But he does seem to be moving a lot of these issues in the right direction, just not some of the most important. So here we go.
Sunny ways, my friends. Sunny ways.
I live in Ontario.
I'm in Toronto.
I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Did Canada fall off terribly this year?
It continues to keep going downhill.
The cost of living is absolutely insane.
The cost of living in Canada is absolutely insane.
I don't understand anymore.
The cost of living is outrageous. The cost of living, just so frustrating that you do all the right things, you go to university and then you come out, you get a job, whatever, and you can barely afford rent.
You go to school, you get a degree, and you're still not guaranteed a job. $60K a year, that used to be a decent amount of money. Not anymore.
I don't understand how I make $34 an hour and I can't function.
I'm working 3 jobs right now. I got out of university last year in December, and I have been grinding it out ever since.
I can't pay my bills. I can't even literally keep gas in my car to get to work 3 days a week.
I have this friend, he's a software developer. He makes a decent amount of money, maybe close to 150. There's no chance I can get a house unless my parents help me. And I was just man, a software developer making 150, and he's man, I can't get a house.
The cost of groceries is absolutely insane. I went to a local farmer's market down the street and I got 5 just little things and it came to $62. That wouldn't even feed me for 3 days.
Maybe $80 in food for the week. And I literally only buy groceries when my daughter's home now.
We're getting absolutely killed on groceries.
I just got back from doing groceries and I have $70 worth of groceries on my table right now, and I genuinely don't even know what I purchased that made it to $70.
There's people who have full-time jobs making $40K who are going to the food bank.
I can't afford to move out. I'm 24 and I'm embarrassed that I can't move out. I can't leave my toxic household.
How do you live?
I can't function anymore.
It's brutal out there.
I feel so utterly stuck. I don't know what to do anymore.
This Canadian dream, is it still a thing?
Sunny ways, my friends. Sunny ways. Sunny ways, my friends. Sunny ways.
Bring it home, guys. Yeah, so good campaign ad by controlled opposition leader Pierre Poilievre. Again, I do think that if he gets in, it would be a step in the right direction. Things would be better, but it's not all the way there. He serves the same hegemony. They've just given him permission now to lead the country. Okay, and speaking of controlled opposition, here is CCP asset Joe Beijing Biden. Simon Atiba on Twitter is tweeting out, see it, President Joe Biden, quote, name me a single objective we have ever set out to accomplish that we failed at. Okay, I'll just let Joe Biden say it here because he's completely unhinged at this point.
Name me a single objective we've ever set out to accomplish that we failed on. Name me one in all of our history. Not one. Name me a single.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the leader of the free world there. And he is absolutely oppositional to his populace. And this is the guy who said we've lost patience with the unvaccinated. His State of the Union address, had the red background and all this stuff. It was very Third Reich-esque. And he goes off on these unhinged rants to gaslight his population and to scare everybody. So this is very clearly a tyrant, and that is the world that we're living in right now, unfortunately. And here is Brian Lilly. It says, okay, I think I showed that one already. All right. Here is Eva Chipwick, and she was one of the convoy lawyers who's saying, strange that the government, science, and medical community all had the answers to deal with a novel, constantly evolving worldwide respiratory pandemic, and how the same people can account for a large increase in death. And she's tweeting out a Globe and Fail article. More people than expected are dying in Canada in 2023 for reasons that are not yet clear to the Globe and Mail. And that's a paid article, and of course I'm not going to give the Globe and Fail any money. They've already got the gun in my face and the hand in my pocket. Couple of good responses down here too. Here's this is Libra Girl 293 on Twitter, and she's tweeting out a graphic of USA Today. Week in and week out, this unnatural loss of life on the scale of war or a terrorist event. But the question remains, what explains this ongoing wave of excess deaths, writes Dr. Pierre Corey and Mary Beth Pfeiffer. And so these headlines are making their way around. And here's the United Kingdom. 30,000 excess deaths in 2023 year to date in the UK. I think that's year to date. We have similar numbers over here in Canada. It's hard to tell because StatsCan is playing hide the ball with the statistics, and they've just reimagined how it is that they're supposed to compile statistics. So it makes it really hard to gain any reliable statistics from them. But yeah, I showed an old CBC article from last year that talks about Nova Scotia. With CBC Nova Scotia says province tight-lipped about sudden spike in deaths, and the death rate is up by 1 in 1,000 in Nova Scotia. If that trend holds throughout the country, you're looking at like 40,000 excess deaths in Canada per year. That's like a small town, every year that's just being wiped out. And here's the counter signal. This is Mike Campbell, Cian Bexty's initiative, the counter signal. And he says, Canada's new health minister tells everyone to immediately get another COVID shot. Since getting assigned as Canada's new health minister, Mark Holland made it one of his first public speaking appearances on Wednesday and promptly told Canadians to get another COVID shot. Holland, a former CBC panelist with an undergraduate degree in history and political science, fielded a question from a reporter about the rising COVID cases in Canada. Quote, we're monitoring the situation very closely, close quote, Holland said. Holland further said he's evaluating the situation every day. Quote, the critical thing for everybody is to get their vaccinations up to date, close quote, he said. Quote, we are ready to take action as the situation evolves. So this is evil. The reporter further asked if people should, quote unquote, wait or, quote, get their shot now, close quote, as if these are the only two options. Quote, I don't think people should hesitate in getting vaccinated at any time, close quote, Holland responded. CTV PSYOP. I'm glad they're using this language. Perhaps not coincidental, the reporter was from CTV, whose outlet put out 15 articles on COVID in about a 24-hour span this week. So yeah, propaganda machine is ramping up, trying to get everybody boosted for the fall. Yeah, good luck with that. I think the statistics that we're seeing right now is that roughly 5% of Canadians are all boosted up. Back to the article. Holland's statement reflects much of what Trudeau's former health minister, Jean-Yves Duclos, told Canadians last year when he said they should get vaccinated every 9 months to be considered, quote unquote, up to date. Quote, let me be very clear. Up to date means you have received your last dose in the past 9 months, close quote, Duclos said last year. Canadians are done with COVID. Only 5% of Canadian population has received a COVID vaccine shot in the past 16 months. Let's hope that Trantifa runs out and gets all their booster shots. Okay, I'm getting up to the point in the program here, as you can tell from the segue, I think, that we start to talk about the science. And so I'm going to sign off of the YouTube channels. Sorry for everybody over there on YouTube. I appreciate you guys, but please join us over on Rumble. Before I go, I'm going to plug our website here, Veterans for Freedom. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, you can click this button here for the V4F newsletter subscription. If you're a veteran and you want to join, or if you're frustrated that we haven't given you your membership yet because we lost a bunch of applications when the last website failed. So please feel free to resubmit, guys. Apologies for that, but who knows, maybe that was a cyber attack or whatever. It is what it is, as we're so fond of saying in the Canadian military. Over here, you have the support button. And so if you want to support Veterans for Freedom, there are a couple of ways you can do that. You can make a donation to V4F itself, help us with a monthly or one-time donation to support the ongoing operations of Veterans for Freedom. That's what we use for our operational costs. It keeps the lights on around here. It pays for my StreamYard account and our website, things like that. And we're doing all kinds of initiatives all over the place. And we are an official not-for-profit, so we're required to keep all the financial records and disclose. And we're going to work on getting all of that fully transparent and up on the website for all the haters out there that are constantly coming into my stream and interrogating me as to where the funds are going. But anyway, yeah, it's a fully above board not-for-profit. So, and also there's the support fund. Join the V4F support fund to help Canadians who are facing difficulties in modern day Canada. If you want to support that, you go ahead and click on the button. And as you can see, we have all these buttons set up for anything from a $5 to a $1,000 a month donation from your credit card. If you don't want to use a credit card, you can set up your e-transfer to go to fund@veteransforfreedom.ca. That's veterans4freedom.ca. Auto deposit enabled preferably, but if you're not able to do that, please use the password fund4freedom. That's fund4freedom. And we have donated already to the last one went to Garnett Harper's there. The guy who needed a kidney transplant was denied because of his vaccination status in Ontario. He ended up dying and left behind a widow and 5 children. So last month's donations went to his family. Before that, it was to saving the life of Sheila Annette Lewis, who's being denied a double lung transplant by Alberta Health Services for her vaccination status. So this is a very worthy initiative. I'm really proud of it. And thanks to Drew for all of the incredible effort that went into this. And please give generously, folks. Okay, I'm about to drop the YouTube channel here, guys. Again, apologies, but take it up with YouTube. It's